You're watching Telecom TV from the ETSI NFV 15 event in Nice. I'm joined now by Pierre Lynch, who is Lead Technologist Product Management at Ixia. Pierre, thanks for joining us on Telecom TV. What is Ixia's interest and involvement with NFV?
Yes, well, Ixia is a visibility, security, and testing company. Our roots are in testing, but we've diversified since then. Since we're very involved in every type of network, and especially I represent the test area. So testing NFV has multiple impacts on testing itself. We had to virtualize ourselves, so that's our interest as well.
So what has your experience been so far of NFV, and where are we along the NFV journey?
Well, we're pretty heavily involved in NFV deployments and also testing within the constructors as well, but mainly with deployments and testing in the operator community. We have multiple customers using our equipment, our software, if you will, to test their mobility, their 4G deployments right now, because they're switching over to a virtual environment. So we've been pretty heavily involved, as well as benchmark testing for platforms and things like that. So where the industry is, well, it's still crawling along very well, actually. The progress in the past 2 years has been pretty good. The first concern was always performance. Can a general purpose computing platform perform as well as specialized platforms? And what we found is there's been a lot of progress on that end. Now the focus is on the deployment, onboarding, VNFs, and interop between that. So MANO is catching up slowly. There's some open source and commercial products, but they're all a little bit different. So what we found was when we have either bake-offs or testing or evaluations, the main pain point right now is onboarding all the software onto the platforms. And that's been expressed by here at ETSI NFV and OP-NFV open source platforms as well. Onboarding is still an issue. And that's why there's so much focus in the industry right now on MANO.
You've already covered the challenges in deploying and trialing NFV in networks, but you also mentioned MANO there. Where does MANO fit in with NFV?
Well, MANO, basically the way ETSI NFV views it is the VNF will be described in a package with descriptors and metadata, etc. Those specs are not finalized yet, so for the time being, all the open source platforms for MANO have their own way of onboarding VNFs. That's why it's become a challenge, because every VNF provider has its own little different ways to onboard on different types of platforms as a result.
This is the first time that an ETSI NFV event has had a 5G workshop attached to it. What is the relationship between 5G and NFV?
Well, for all the tracking I've done for 5G, the consistency is that NFV, SDN, and MEC will be part of 5G. It's going to be an integral part. So it's going to be one of the building blocks, 3 of the building blocks of 5G, irrespective of the 5G air interface. Everybody focuses on that. But on the core and an end-to-end perspective, NFV, MEC, and SDN will be part of it. And especially in order to implement the concepts that 5G is coming up with, and especially slicing as the example, network slicing, it totally relies on concepts from virtualization and NFV. So the way I'm viewing it right now is it'll be part of it necessarily.
Can 5G projects and the 5G developments and specification development leverage ETSI NFV specifications? And in turn, I wonder, can the 5G community contribute to what ETSI is doing specifically with NFV? So rather than wait for ETSI NFV ISG to complete its mission, should or can the 5G community get in there now and try and help and direct? So how can 5G projects leverage the specification work that's being conducted by ETSI NFV ISG and in turn contribute to the ETSI work?
There's many 5G communities that are engaging with us, and that's already happened, by the way. There's a liaison between 3GPP and ETSI NFV. But yes, it's going to be a collaborative effort. And it'll take shape in multiple ways, but I'm sure the 5G communities will impose or request requirements on ETSI NFV to be able to fulfill what they see as necessary for 5G going forward.
So 5G will have an impact on the development of NFV.
I do see that, yeah. It'll bring it in as requirements. And it was expected in my mind anyway, because most of the first use cases for virtualization were mobile, in fact. 4G, LTE, virtualization of the core, virtualization of the RAN. A lot of people are doing work in that, including NGMN, 3GPP, and another group I go to, the Small Cell Forum. So everybody's involved. Mobility was and still is the first grand use case. So that 5G leverages that, to me, just makes sense.
Do you think the Internet of Things, IoT, is one of the important drivers towards the adoption of NFV?
Maybe as a driver, yeah, but I think it'll be a user of NFV, and it just makes sense. And the concept of network slicing is dedicated virtual networks for specific applications or geographies. I'm oversimplifying. But this is a very specific type of application, so that IoT, depending on the thing, right? Automotive is a very specific type of application. It has real-time implications. But if you're talking about the world of sensors and for water sensors and cowbells, I always joke, that's a totally different type of application. And you can just dedicate a virtual core network and RAN towards it so that you don't have to worry about the high QoS type of activities going on in this core. You just worry about the small little data elements coming in from a bazillion type of sensors. So, it fits nicely. So I think I look at it as being a user of NFV technology, along with all the other applications that you could slice a core network into doing. So the purpose is to relieve the QoS stress on a network to have to handle everything into very dedicated vertical slices that can handle very specific types of applications.
Pierre, thank you very much indeed.